And you've just heard Tower by Tom McGuire and the Brassholes from their new album Stay Rad. And I'm delighted to be joined now by Tom McGuire himself. Hello, Tom.
Hello there, how are you doing? You all right?
I'm good. It's great to meet you.
You too.
So what can you tell us about Stay Rad?
Cool. Well, Stay Rad's it's the second record from Tom McGuire The Brassholes. It's our band, and it's a work that I'm very proud of, and I'm very glad it's finally out and for everyone to be able to consume in its intended form, which is, it's a long form album. It's a whole record that tells a story from start to finish, and tells quite a difficult and hard story for me, for sure. It's just it's basically charts a crisis that I'm sure a lot of people will be able to relate to. It's one of these things forged in the horrible fires of lockdown, and it talks about some heavy stuff, but eventually it wraps around to some sort of convalescence. And yeah, there's a whole arc there, and it's within it, it's basically contained my entire self at a particular time, a time of crisis and turmoil, and eventually, reaching well-being again.
It's interesting because you're right, and I think lyrically, perhaps people who have heard your music before might not expect it, because I always think of Tom McGuire and the Brassholes records as big celebrations, of life, almost that way. But this is something different, isn't it?
Well, I mean, they are a celebration of life. They are a celebration of life. And our first record was also that. And this is something I think I've been quite successful in doing. Containing quite serious matters, nevertheless, and something that is a celebration of life. I mean, pain and suffering and all that sort of stuff is part of life, and it's something you have to acknowledge. To not acknowledge that and to put the blinkers on about that sort of thing is to ignore certain important parts of life that's it's just unrealistic to ignore. So I managed to contain these sort of themes, these heavy themes, in what sounds on the surface to be very, very uplifting party music, but really delve just a little bit deeper into the words of them, and there's some heavy stuff in there, So yes, it is a celebration of life, but whilst also acknowledging some of those dark bits, but always if I can manage to give some sort of learning point, some sort of teaching point, some sort of revelation from the suffering that I'm talking about or have experienced. They're all just like lessons that I've trying to teach myself, and I'm trying to remind myself by putting them into songs that I have to sing over and over again. So hopefully I'll remember the message that I've learned at some point and forgotten, and learned and forgotten. So that's how it goes.
Because it makes it such an interesting record for me, because what always grabs me anyway with one of your records is it's a big sound. There's lots going on. There's usually lots of people playing on it and everything like that. So you really have to take the time, I think, to kind of go back and really listen to the lyrics, and that, as you say, that's when you hear that there's something perhaps more complex than you may first think going on, and that's great because it can work on all sorts of levels.
Yeah, that's it. Yep, try to engineer a few levels in there, so it's not just there's not one dimension to it. There's several levels that people can enjoy it on, and that's something I've consciously set out to do. So I'm glad that it's getting clocked, getting registered.
And how long were you working on it? Was this basically a lockdown album, or was there things on it that had started before then?
It feels like it's been in the works for a long time, but realistically speaking, it was mostly written even 2 or 3 years ago. Whenever lockdown was, the majority of it was written in lockdown. In a time of crisis, I felt like I was in crisis before lockdown happened, and the pandemic and the world shutting down kind of allowed me a minute to step back, and just the world had to stop for me to sort of stop and have a look, and then that's what allowed me this time to sit and write, which had up to that point been kind of unavailable to me. So yeah, I wrote a lot of the sort of raw material for it in lockdown, and then whenever we were able to get in the room with each other and practice and sort of workshop some of this stuff, which was kind of rare. You remember how it was. It's all a bit of a blur now, but it was quite difficult to get anything done. So yeah, a lot of these songs have been really, really. I've initially written them a long time ago, and then maybe a year later after that, I've been able to workshop with the boys and actually make them songs for the band. And then a year after that, we started releasing the first singles, and then it feels like a year after that again, it's the final album has been able to be released as a complete set. So it feels like it's a long, long journey, a long time ago, which is why I'm able to sort of look back at it and kind of conceptualize it as a fragment, as a sort of window of a person that I was round about that absolutely bonkers time that we were all going through. So that's my little sort of document for myself, and for what other people can gain from it, it's for them too.
I think it's really interesting because still, we're probably still so close to it that there hasn't been many kind of artistic responses to lockdown, and that's what makes this record so interesting. You know, there's not been a lot of books, I'm thinking, certainly not novels that I've read, that they've maybe talked about other pandemics that you can link to it, but this one seems specifically to go, this is what this was like for me.
Yeah.
It makes you think on what it's like, you know, for the listener or for, you know, the person in the audience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily specifically and explicitly linked to the pandemic. It's just so happens to be the person that I was in that crisis during that time. Like I said, I was in crisis before that, and the crisis was very much based around my identity as a musician, as an artist. You know, I've not written anything for a while. Oh my goodness, everyone thinks I'm going to write something and I haven't written anything. That sort of pressure, that sort of mentality, which when I was in the height of that crisis when the lockdown began, and then all I had to do was just time to think about it and time to overthink about it, and then time to take that kind of turmoil and confusion and turn it into songs. So there's a lot of turmoil in these songs, but by the a bit of self discovery, and by the end of it, I'm better, and that's kind of what's going on there. So it's not specifically about this is about a pandemic. This is about the particular snapshot of me during that time.
And what strikes me is that you're one of the bands that few manage to capture how you sound live on recording, you know, in the studio as you do. And is that something that's really important to you? Is that a deliberate thing?
That is important to me. That is whenever I listen to records of bands, it's always a little bit disappointing when it doesn't sound like a real band in a real room, like you're watching a live show. Obviously, live shows can be ropey and the sound can be questionable and so on. But I have been thinking of this recently. Like, you want to be listening to the record, and you want to sound like this is the best a band could possibly sound live, and it's not overproduced. There's not too much extraneous stuff stripping you away from the bones of it. I mean, there's lots to say a little bit of production can do something, and that could be an extra sort of artistic tool. But yeah, it is important for me to, the band, all the players are excellent players, and that should be kind of represented more or less faithfully. That being said, we did sort of go for a pointedly kind of saturated, vintagey kind of sound, but that's what we're looking for. But the vintage sort of 70s saturated sound, that is the sound of a band playing in a room. So yeah, I guess that's two ways of saying the same thing.
That's the sound of a band playing, in inverted commas, real instruments. You know, that's what you kind of get, I think, from that. And so you've got this great reputation, rightly so, as a live band. When lockdown kicked in, did you feel in a way the band was put on hold?
Yes, and I can look back on that and be very glad of that. I think I was even glad at the time. Like I said, I was in this sort of this crisis. I made the first record, and there was some success from it, and there was some great weight of expectation that I put on myself. I wouldn't say other people have put it on me, because that's my doing. That's on me to have done that. So, and we were just playing festivals and playing tours, and then I wasn't getting a chance to stop and take a sit back and assess and gather my thoughts and try and create a bit of a space for myself where I could be creative again and write. And all this pressure and all this other stuff was just souring that potential creative space even more so. So yeah, like the band did get put on halt, and as I said, that's the fact that the world went and the world just stopped. That
Yeah.
was the only thing that was able to make me just stop. Without that, I don't know. I would still be kind of frantically trying to keep the machine of the band moving, try to keep the profile of the band moving, but without having had any sort of mental headspace to write any more songs. You know what I mean? So I did need that stop. I did need that pause. But yes, everyone else paused, so I didn't feel bad about pausing. You know what I mean?
That's so interesting because from the outside, I would think a lot of people, including myself, would think, "Oh, that's terrible," because Tom McGuire and the Brassholes are at a level where they look as though they're going on to the next level, and this is now all stopped. But what you're saying is actually you needed time to reflect
Yeah,
before you moved ahead.
yeah. Exactly. I mean, if anything, I feel like we'd had an up and then we were just in a gradual down, and I was sort of just frantically trying to scrabble at the last sort of remnants of momentum for the band, just frantic, thinking, "Oh God, this is it. It's all going down. It's all going. We're falling off. This is it. I've missed my chance." And this sort of frantic pressure. So, I think probably if the world hadn't stopped, or if I hadn't managed to stop myself, then I think the band would probably just continue to peter down and peter out. But since the way it's gone, we've now we're on another up, and the up is still going, and we're now in a higher point than we were, a higher peak than we were in the previous sort of run. And I dare say that wouldn't have happened had I not had that just forced stoppage, you know.
And now that you are out playing live again, and as someone who's in the audience, it feels to me that everyone is just so delighted that to be doing that, to be, in a space where there's live music playing. Has it felt that way to you, that it's great to be back?
Oh, for sure, absolutely. I mean, it feels like we've been back, so to speak, for a wee while now. But I think the first few times we've been playing, we were still aware of, and I'd heard about people feeling a little bit uncomfortable. But I think by now we've been back for a while, but now everyone is just there's no sort of qualms, there's no discomfort. Everyone's purely there. Everyone's definitely in the moment there. Nobody's kind of worried or apprehensive. And it's this sense that it's over and now it is kind of celebration time. I guess like we were all sort of thinking, oh, maybe when the pandemic finishes, we'll just have a big celebration, like it'll be a D-Day thing. Oh, it's all over, the war is over. But of course, it couldn't have been like that. It's got to be a gradual thing, and I feel like this is now we're getting to that point where, generally speaking, well, I certainly hope this is true, but generally speaking, people feel free and feel, liberated from that mentality, from that sort of horrible time, and now people are getting together, going to live shows, and truly partying with no apprehension.
I would agree with you. The last, certainly I think probably all the way through this year, there's no hesitating hugging that was good. It was before, it was like, oh no, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Folk are just like, great to see you, man. It's really been good to be back. And
it feels like the last of those cobwebs are sort of blowing away a little bit, and it won't be long till it's almost forgotten. Well, it won't ever be forgotten, but we'll behave in a way that we used to enjoy.
Exactly. And talking about live, you recently played the Barras as part of Celtic Connections. How was that?
It was amazing. It was incredible. I'm actually just I'm sitting editing some video for it just now, and kind of reliving it a little bit, because it was about a month ago now, and a month in which I've been sort of thrust straight into new fatherhood. So I've not really had a chance to reflect too much on it, but now I'm just looking back on it. It was an amazing and momentous, and like I said before, quite unexpected, unforeseen kind of height for us to reach. So yeah, I mean, I was definitely experiencing it truly in the moment, which is what I'm always striving to do. And yeah, it's something I don't think I'll ever forget. Even if that's the peak we reach and we don't go further from that, I'm going to be satisfied. I'm not going to let that kind of fear of loss of momentum take over me again, because I've done a truly great thing that I never would have my wildest dreams 5 or 10 years ago anticipated something like that. Never would have thought that could happen. So yeah, it was an important one for me, an important one.
But it must be great as well, having done that, to then have a new album to release. The timing seems almost perfect for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's all the sort of strategy of releasing albums and doing shows and scheduling stuff is a funny one. It's a bit of a dark art, but I would have maybe liked the album to be out for the Barrowlands, but the way these things go, to make the best shot of it, you've got to be a little bit tactical, a bit strategic. So we ended up releasing it a month later, kind of in order for the vinyl to be ready, which it wasn't ready in time, of course. And the story goes that it's all because Adele clogged up all the pressing plants with a massive record in the lockdown, and all the pressing plants are still catching up. That's how the story goes. I'm not going to say if it's definitely true or not, but let's call it a nice wee myth.
But I mean, it seems to have affected so many bands that there's probably a lot of truth in there. And I didn't know you'd just become a father, so congratulations. That's timing as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's the more sort of poignant timing. It's uncanny. Really, the baby was born 2 weeks before the Barrowlands, and the baby was 2 weeks late, and then the baby you couldn't actually take the baby out of the hospital yet. Her name's Maria, by the way. You couldn't take Maria out of the hospital because she had some complications, and it wasn't until the weekend of the Barrowlands that we were actually able to take her out of the hospital and take her home. So I had the Barrowlands, the biggest gig of my career, on the Friday, and then on the Sunday I took my baby daughter home.
Oh wow, man!
Started fatherhood properly, and the timing of that is just unbelievable and uncanny, and it's just like the biggest life events I've had in my life, really, kind of stacking on top of each other in the same weekend. Quite a mad month, I'm sure you'll agree.
Well, Tom, I appreciate even more you taking the time to talk to us after all that going on in your life. So I guess there's so much going on. I'm not even going to ask you if there's stuff coming up for you. People can find that out when the time comes.
Actually, I can, and I would love to tell you.
Okay.
So we're going out on tour in Scotland next week. So the 17th through to the 25th, we're on tour in Scotland. 17th, Dundee, Beat Generator. 18th, Aberdeen Tunnels. 19th, Inverness, Tooth and Claw. 23rd is at Edinburgh Voodoo Rooms. 24th is Galashiels McCart's. 25th is Paisley Bungalow. This show is CamGlen, this show, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So perhaps there'll be people who'll be interested in going to Paisley or Edinburgh, Galashiels. So that's that. And later on in April, we're going on tour in England. But, never mind that.
The hardest working man in show business. That's not
working on it.
Good on you. Well, Tom, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. I really do appreciate it.
No worries.
And this is the title track of the new Tom McGuire and the Brassholes album, Stay Rad.